Welcome back to Life in the New Normal podcast, y'all.
Welcome back.
This is Coach Dena Paduano. I am your co-host Ashley Heydrich, and we are so excited to be back. It is
Yay.
approaching the holidays, Dena.
Yay.
So exciting.
Thanksgiving, holiday season.
Well, exciting for some / triggering for others, right?
Yes. Conflicted. Sometimes I'm very conflicted around the holidays because you get in the holiday vibe, but then when it comes closer to going where you need to go with people you may not always want to be with, then you get triggered.
There's so many things, and I don't even know where to start. So we thought it would be wise to do an episode called "Why Am I So Triggered at the Holidays?"
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, it could be, look, people lose loved ones around the holidays, and that can be a super sensitive trigger. There are people with eating disorders.
Issues, yes.
That a spread, this never occurred to me before, a spread of food could be, anyway.
Triggering, yes.
Don't even get me started about family, so we'll get to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where would you like to start?
Let's start at, I guess, the why or what makes us get triggered. Listen, I'm not the professional. I can only go from my own experience and but again, I think it goes from every year you feel like you love the holidays and maybe there's that hope and expectation it might be different than it was the year before.
We already talked about expectations.
Super excited. I know, but then you think about this and it's like, you can't help it.
Yeah.
You can't help it, like, oh, maybe this year or maybe la. And then
for sure.
I find myself, and especially this happens too around my birthday, is that for no reason, I just get very sad and emotional. And I think it really is, sometimes you hear people, I got a surprise party or someone did that. Totally. But I'm working on it. But it is this kind of thing that you want to feel. And then you get to a house or a place and then someone just robs you of that instantly because you're triggered.
Well, I mean, every holiday movie you watch, is this beautiful family. So, well, not everyone. Thank God there's some snarky ones out there too, right? But the classics are like this beautiful family or message and everything's decorated beautifully and it creates this super warm, fuzzy feeling. And or it's like romance happening during the holidays, which has been a big thing for me over the years. Like I would always put that as by next Christmas, I'm going to be with the one.
Yes,
and it was always a thing. So it's like a milestone. It's wrapping up the end of the year. So we set all these like, oh shit, what have I done with my life this year? Where am I? What's going on before you start the next year? So,
well, and I think too is that, all I can speak for is myself and growing up, there was a very high expectation on what you brought to someone's home and what you gave them. So literally sometimes it would be like, well, that's not that big of a deal. So like that goes over there. And it was more about how much things cost.
Where was that? That was in California.
It wasn't about, oh, this is so nice. This is so lovely. Thank you for the gesture. Right. And so every year for me, it was a pressure of upping your ante of like, I got to do better than I did last year because I don't want to get, judged again or whatever it may be. But as you were speaking before, ever since I can remember when I was young, Thanksgiving for me triggered food issues. And so I have some food issues, a little body dysmorphia, and I used to do anything to avoid being around that much food because I couldn't handle my self-control. So in history, what would happen is I would always, even now I am, start dieting in October to get me through until January. I would have cheap meals on those days, but I'm not starting off the new year 20 pounds heavier, eating my way through the holidays because that triggers that in me. Right.
Gosh, and so, and everybody goes through a little bit of that. I think, that's,
for sure.
Just knowing that that's the time of the year when all the favorite dishes come out and you want to taste them all.
I
it is
know.
challenging, but that's a good point. Thank you for sharing that, because I never would have thought, and it's something to just maybe to be aware of and be considerate of, is as you're preparing these spreads and putting this out for your family to share. Not everybody might feel good about seeing that much food in front of them,
Yes.
because maybe it's
Triggering. And
yeah.
there's no worse feeling when you are trying to just portion control and then someone makes a big deal. What are you doing? Why are you eating so little? That's
Ah,
how it used to come out. And
uh-huh.
what's going on? Why are you dieting today? That, and then everyone else would chime in. And then you would feel pressured to put more food on your plate because
Oh,
they worked so hard at making the food. It's a special
right.
day. It's
Yeah.
this, but then the guilt would set in, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, can you please just let me fucking eat what I want to eat?
Uh-huh.
Because I'm working through stuff of my own,
Totally.
right? And you don't
Yeah.
say that to them, but seriously, I mean, thankfully, every house I ever go to has dogs, and so you can just slip it under the table. But you know,
Cut to dog
I
shitting on
know.
the rug, and
It ain't my problem. You force me to eat your food, I'm gonna force your dog. Is
Wow.
what it is.
I have family members who, and I've mentioned this before, their love language is by feeding you and through food.
Yes.
And that's,
Yes.
so there is that, did you try my casserole? Well, why didn't you
Mm-hmm.
take a piece of this cake? Just a tiny piece of the cake, and
Mm-hmm.
same thing, like on that day, I'll do the same thing. I'll overeat, but I try to, be good around
I
that, and
just
keep the
don't.
extra, try
Here's
to be consistent as much as possible up and around.
Yeah, but I want to explain too. Here's for people who don't understand why I do this.
Uh-huh.
In history of me, knowing me,
Mm-hmm.
right, is that what I have learned for myself is, let's say if you for Thanksgiving weekend allow yourself to be gluttonous and eat through that. That is a problem for me because then I get in that mode,
Mm-hmm.
and then my consumption, then I'm like, forget it. And then after that, I'm still hungry because now I've stretched my stomach and I've tasted all of these things, and my taste buds are going because I haven't tasted these things in a while. And then I'm like, oh, just get me through. And then I can't stop
Mm-hmm.
and go back to the portion control. It's not as easy for me to go back. It takes me a lot to get where I am right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And so to throw it all away for a 4-day weekend, which then leads to, for me, staying consistent with my consumption and portions and all of that. So that is what scares me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I don't want to go down that road. Do you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't, thank you for bringing that up, because I don't want to now, I want to be aware now of people and not forcing them to taste my casserole or whatever,
Totally.
I
And
mean,
will this be your
shit.
first holiday with your family sober?
No,
Yeah. Well, I
yes.
meant
Yes,
Thanksgiving,
because
and
last,
yeah.
both, because I stopped drinking last year, December 26th. So, yep. I'm
So
like,
it
damn, it will
might
be.
it might be a little triggering, and these are
Lord.
things for you to watch out to, because most
Oh
of us in the
boy.
past have been able to have a glass of wine,
Yes.
laugh it off.
Right.
And so, when people are drunk, they like to repeat themselves, they like to,
Oh, yes.
point out things that they think are
Oh.
funny that you've done before in the past, and you're like, dude, that was funny when I was drinking,
Mm-hmm.
but it ain't funny now, right? And so I
Probably
just
wasn't
think
even funny when
it's
I was drinking, knowing them. No, I'm just
for
kidding.
sure, right? No,
I'm
but
just kidding.
it's like, I think too, it's like, not that we mean to be it, but I'm a very different person when I'm not drinking than when I am. I'm still fun and
Totally.
obnoxious, but I think drinking, I'll let things slide a lot more, and I'm not
Yeah.
as like, present. And so it's like, well, I'm just around my family. This is nice. But I don't know why, but in my family, everyone likes to pick on each other.
Yeah.
So it's like the boys will pick on the girls, and the girls will pick on, they'll defend themselves. And my dad likes to pick. And it's just like, it's not fun for me sitting
Mm-mm.
around getting picked on around a bunch of food that I'm trying to say no to.
Yeah. It's not fun getting picked on, period. And
For
I
sure.
got called out on that about 2 years ago by a friend that
What
was
do you
with me,
mean?
because I used to sort of tease and pick at things,
Mm-hmm.
and it was always with people
Me
that I
too.
really liked, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
she called me out on it, and she was like, that Southern thing that you do of teasing, but really there's a little something underneath it, that shit is toxic. And I was like, ooh,
Oh,
you know?
wow.
And I went, you know what?
I used to do that.
You're right.
I used to do the jokes.
And it feels like what you do
too.
with your family and with your, but then I went, you know what? You're so right. Shit. I'm sorry, you know?
And that's tough because in my family, when they were being funny, it was making fun of the other person, and I would be the butt of the joke, and I used to do that humor, and someone called me out when I was in my 20s and said, that's not funny. And I was like, what do you mean? Because everyone always did that in my family. And for me, that was funny, but now I'm learning it's not funny to make someone else the butt of the joke.
Right.
And so just because I've stopped, I know, but just because I've stopped doesn't mean my family has.
Oh, absolutely.
So you can't
and I'm about to walk
go
back to the
expecting.
Same thing.
Yes.
And you know, and I love them, and there's so much closeness, and there's things that, you know, there's like a family speak. There's such a dialogue that you have with your brothers and sisters, or, you know, whatever, that's like a closeness that y'all just get each other. And I look forward to all of that. For sure. Yeah. But inevitably, you know, they know the good and the bad. Sometimes.
Yeah. What do you do though? Because see, I'm not around my family as much as you are because, you know, you go home and stuff. I haven't been home in a few years. And so I get to avoid that. Right. But, because I believe so much in having a plan in case you get triggered already in your head so that you don't get super upset and you know what the plan is in your head, to not be a runner, and then you don't sit in it, but how you're going to speak up for yourself in a healthy way to where you're heard.
Right.
And then if you're not heard, are you going to keep staying in that?
That was specifically for me, wasn't it?
Maybe.
Because you know, I have zero problems speaking up, but the challenge always is, how do I not react? Because that is my family dynamic, and that is what we do with each other. We bam, 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 bam.
Yes.
And I think nothing of it, and we all think nothing of it, and it's almost fun sometimes to like debate and get into that.
The banter.
Oh yeah. But yeah, when it gets to somebody says something a little, you know, that just heads in the wrong direction, then it's like, okay, I jump in just as fast to defend myself, and I'll try to find that thing that'll get them, you know.
And
I don't know.
This holiday,
I got to think about that. That's a good point.
Well, and I want everyone to think about this. This holiday is going to be right during the election cycle.
Oh, shit, that's true.
And so you've got to be very careful, especially people who drink. I'm not saying drinking is bad at the holidays. Some people need it. But I'm saying, especially when you drink, you cannot be super reactive right away and get defensive. Like, I recommend going in with a game plan in your head, like certain words that are triggering to you, off topic, political, religion, abortion, off topic, like just not good conversations to have around a table.
Well, what does that mean? Do you mean you don't bring it up, or when they bring it up?
Yes. You don't engage.
I mean, they're going to bring it up. Oh, they don't.
Yeah, but you don't engage. No, it's not your conversation.
Right, exactly.
So if you start to engage,
you just say, because sometimes they point it directly at you. I've had that before. Well, Ashley, your governor just said blah, 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 and the political conversation starts.
You can say,
and I usually say, yeah.
What do you say?
I usually say, I don't know. I don't know. I don't follow him. I have no idea. Oh, did he say? Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
you really, I think it's different for everyone, but what I've learned through therapy and things like that is, if you kind of give a reaction, people will find a loophole to get you into a conversation. If you casually interrupt the conversation and go, oh, I got to go to the bathroom, or oh my God, I got to respond to this text, or whatever it may be, I think that's your better bet, because by the time you get back, they're probably starting conversations with other people.
Oh, gee, got to go wash my cat.
Yeah, I
Oh,
know.
gee, gotta go. Take a walk around the block. Oh, gee, gotta
Oh,
go.
gee.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's important because what I've learned, because sometimes now I spend the holidays with my ex and his family, right? And so he
Oh,
can be
Lord.
triggering.
Of course.
And so thankfully, no one else understands when him and I are speaking in English. So I may say things like back and forth, but then I get up and I go to the bathroom because it's not worth it. And it's just not the time. But I think he likes to sort of do that, right? And so it's okay. But I growing up, they used to call me the holiday ditcher because I would do anything to get out of holidays. For
Really?
one, I didn't want to be around all that food.
Mm-hmm.
For two,
How old were you?
whoever I was, probably it started at 10.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I would get a job, and I got a job at Coco's, and I would ask to work every holiday. So I'd be like,
Really?
sorry, I gotta work. And I
Oh,
would be a
wow.
hostess at Coco's. And then I would think, if I wasn't there, or sometimes I would say I was sick, if I wasn't there, and I would pretend sick because I also hated the mess,
Yeah.
because my mom was someone who didn't clean while she cooked. So every time she would be using a plate or a dish, and I would watch the
What an
plate.
asshole.
And so
No.
I know, but I thought by saying I was sick, it would get me out of that.
Uh-huh.
No, they would call me after everyone was done eating, and I'd still have to clean.
You
So,
you weren't getting away with
it's
anything.
nope. And
But that is
so
true. I mean, if you were put in that position, like no kid wants to do dishes anyway. I mean, why
no.
isn't it like everybody has to pitch in? I've never understood that. I don't think one
Not in
person
my
should
household.
be
The boys
stuck.
were, my mom didn't want girls. She only wanted boys. So the boys were kings. And me and my
Right.
sister had to do all the cleaning.
Oh boy.
Because
Yeah,
my mom
that's
was raised with my dad, and my dad,
mm-hmm.
a woman's job is in the kitchen,
Oh
right?
boy. Uh-huh.
And so we always had to clean.
Mm-hmm.
And then, God forbid, guests were over. Oh no, then I'd have to clean up over them too.
That's a lot of
And
pressure and stress and
well, it still carries with me now
resentment.
because, yeah, well, even when I would go to my in-laws, literally everyone would laugh and they go, "You're not even done eating your last bite, and Dena has your plate and fork out of your mouth," because I would just be wanting to clean up that mess and get it
Yeah,
over with.
that's funny.
I know it sucks,
You
but
gonna eat
this
that?
is what
You gonna
I,
eat that? You gonna eat that?
mm-hmm.
That's funny.
Nope.
Yeah.
I know, but it's
Well,
for me, it's very triggering, but I love the season.
uh-huh.
I love everything it makes me feel
Mm-hmm.
until I have to go show up with my family.
That sucks. Yeah.
Tough. I
Yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
really tough. And I have a lot of expectations with Christmas. Do not get me wrong. In my family growing up, it was about how expensive the gift was. So you always get something expensive or whatever. But then I think what that would do in my feeling is I feel like my parents, especially my dad, would feel like that gives him a clean slate for everything he did all year.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So a lot
Buy you
came
a
with
great
the gift
gift.
giving.
Yeah. That's true.
Exactly.
It kind of felt that way for me as a
It
kid
did.
in a divorce. Yeah, too. The gifts
Yeah,
were sort of
that's tough.
competitive in a way. And it's
Oh,
like,
I like that though.
well, it was great. It was great to a point, but then it was like, nothing
Whose
happened.
gift was better? Each parent would make you feel like,
It
oh,
it
did you
was
like
more
this?
about what you just said. The big gift was given, and then they didn't show up in other ways
There we go.
and I'm like,
Yes.
wait, but I do love my
Yes.
stereo, so fine, I'll be in my room or whatever.
I mean, if
So,
I'm going to take nothing or take something and I already went through the
right.
abuse,
Yeah,
fine, thank you.
exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, but I think too is that let's be specific in the sense is that it's because that could go along with the birthday too, right? It doesn't all have to be that your family's bad, a partner's bad. I think we've all, because things are so commercialized as well,
Mm-hmm.
we've all learned to attach so much expectation to the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Like you were
Christmas
saying
is
before
really
about the
only one
movies.
day, or Hanukkah. Well, Hanukkah's more than one day, but that sort of
Uh-huh.
thing, or Thanksgiving really is only one day, but we stretch it
Yes,
out and then we start celebrating it 3 months before. So it's this whole season of
for
like, I
sure.
can only imagine, if it's a hard thing to go through, that it's like,
Well,
Shit.
and think of the people who can't afford a lot of gifts and how it stresses them out and their families. So then it's like, I would really like to get into this one because I am someone who unfortunately does not have children. The amount of money, and yes, I did it because I wanted to, that I have spent when everyone says, let's just buy for the kids. And it's like, well, I have 11 nieces and nephews. And so it's like, wait, let's buy for the kids. Is anyone buying for my dogs? Right. Is anyone doing whatever? Or hey, like, let's get Dena something. She's single, she's alone. And that was before I got married and even after I got married, right? And so that can be a lot of stress too on a single person or someone else. And I do build resentment.
Yeah,
you know what
I get
mean?
that. Yeah, totally. I get that. It's expensive. It's very expensive. But do you set dollar like limits on those gifts and just say, okay, well, from Aunt Dena, everybody's getting a $20 gift because there's so damn many of you or whatever it is.
No, I would never. I was pretty good about being very creative and trying to like make, but then what was happening is it just was too much. And then you're watching a bunch of kids get so much that your gift is really just in a pile of so many others. So I was just like, you know what? No, I'm not, I can't do it anymore. It's just too overwhelming. And then you set the kid up for expectations every year that, oh, we can't wait for your gift and da 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 da. And it's just like, come on, it's a lot. In Italy, gifts are not a big deal on Christmas. There is no such thing as you buy someone a computer or a bike or whatever for Christmas. It's more about the food and being together. So I've learned a lot since I've been here it's about quality of time together and sharing meals together as opposed to a dollar amount. And I grew up in the dollar amount.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly as a child, I wanted that dollar amount. Like I was always, asking for the expensive stuff, of course, because that's your one time of the year where you can ask for that big ticket item. Right?
Yes, totally.
I didn't always get it, but I always tried.
Right. And then it's also the anxiety of the letdown if you're not going to get what you asked for.
Yes, yes. But now it's like with with one set of the family, we don't exchange. We just still do with the kids, and it is a whole thing of like, oh, you gotta pull all that together, and then for the other side of the family, we just decided not to do. Well, we're discussing not doing gifts anymore, which I prefer. I was like, let's just all take each other out to dinner somewhere, and let's do that. That would be
and maybe let's all write together. Yes, let's pick a name and take a name and then write that person a letter of everything we love about them and appreciate about them.
Oh, that's nice.
I would enjoy that so much more, right?
Yeah.
And so I give for my whole complex, it's 36 apartments, but I like to give because I like the way it makes people feel when they're not expecting anything from anyone and just the sparkle in their eyes. And what I've learned in Italy is people will literally ask you 2 or 3 times, like, for me, like, why for me? And I'm like, why not for you? I want to ask you because see, my triggers are different than yours. So like for me, let me just go down a list. No, my triggers are, is a certain person in the family or whatever going to pick on me? How am I going to handle if my dad gives everyone else attention but me? What about the gifts? What about the expectations, the food? Then here's what happens as well, because I live in a different country, is my head will start going, is this the last Christmas I'm going to be with everyone? Is this the last Christmas my dad's going to be alive? Like I go through all of this emotional stuff. So I think a lot of that too is part of the reason why I used to like to ditch, because it was too much dysregulation for me emotionally. And it just brought up too much that for me, it's easier to just sleep it. And I'll be fine the next day. But that day, it's just, I don't know why it's that, and my birthday has just been always tough, like Thanksgiving. So the second Thanksgiving is over, I will put my tree up and I will go right into holiday season mode to get out of that funk of the funkiness of Thanksgiving, of me feeling weird and me, because I live in a country where we don't have Thanksgiving. It doesn't mean that I'm still not triggered.
Right. Well, you could put up your tree before Thanksgiving then.
I did last year. I made a Halloween tree, but This year I ordered a red Christmas tree because I wanted all the Halloween decorate, but it's not there yet. So hopefully I will. But I do usually because I enjoy it. But
and you're away
it's
from
all in
everybody.
it is, but there's no expectation on me here, right? So then I can enjoy it in a lovely way, but then give it, I don't know, 3 days before. I miss my family.
I was just gonna say,
I want to be around my friends. I want to be around my.
Of course.
And then the day Christmas is over, I'm over it.
And then social media, everybody's posting about what they're doing, which you know,
it's tough.
There are days, when it's like certain things you just sort of have to shut that out. And I've thought about that before, like when I lost my dad was the first time I started thinking about seeing things, you know, certain holidays and whatever, and people with their dads, and I was like, ooh,
it's tough.
It
like
gets more challenging.
I am very, very, because my dad is older and he's 80, right? And so it is tough for me because there are times that I will sit and think, is this the last one? Is it? But see, for me, it's holidays in general, right? Like I want people to love me in a way that some people, it's not fair because they're not capable of loving me in that way, right? But it doesn't mean that the little kid in me still doesn't want it. Like,
of course.
You know what I mean?
And I can imagine if you were at home with your family, because that's where your head goes to, I wonder if this is the last one. Do you overcompensate?
For sure. Do you know how many times I put myself in debt trying to fucking make those people happy?
Yeah, I can.
And they're never happy. Yes, and then they're never. And then they're never happy. And then it's like, what the fuck did I go through all that for? No one fucking cares.
Yeah, I get it.
And so it's
and then it's over in a few days, and they're putting up the tree and moving on with their life.
Right? I do the same. I take my tree out Christmas Day. I'm done. Like I wrap it up, and
my mom
here they don't do it until the 8th,
and it hurts my feelings. I'm like, but all the we did all that work, and it's so beautiful. And she's like, nope, New Year, let's go, you know, out. And I'm like, God.
Well, because I agree with her. Every time I look at the tree, all I'm looking at is I have to clean that mess up, and I want to get that mess out of here. Because as the kid, and as a kid. Because me and my sister were the ones who always had to clean and always had to make the more balls that were put on the tree. I'm like, no, please. And especially when that tree was dead.
That is so funny.
Because I knew I had to clean it up, right? So that would be the ADHD in me.
You decorated it as well, or you did not? Somebody else decorated and you had to clean it up?
My mom would, or us kids, yes.
So they got
me
the
and
joy
my mom, yes.
Of the...
Yes, it was a nightmare. I had to clean.
That's just not okay.
Listen,
you dealt with some rough stuff, Dena. That's just not.
Not okay. Listen, I would get woken up in the middle of the night at like 3 a.m, at 7 or 8. Me and my sister to get up and clean the holiday decorations at 3 a.m. and not go to school the next day.
Because they were
so
done
when
partying?
I say. Well, not partying. This is my mom who, you know, had some mental health issues, would get up in the middle of the night and pull one of us out of bed, usually me. Well, it was always me and my sister. And we would have to start cleaning at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm not saying all holidays are ruined, but unfortunately in my younger days, they were in that sense, because think if you have ADHD and you have autism and all of these things, for me, my biggest thing is messes and piles and things. And it's just like, and then I get anxiety. So I get so overwhelmed with that I can't even enjoy. You know what I mean? And so it's tough. I get triggered a lot. Even I think as siblings, we trigger each other just by seeing each other.
Probably.
And we all go back to our old roles. I'm the younger sister. Absolutely. They pick on me. You know what I mean?
That happens 1000% in every conversation. And we still have the childhood nicknames. I'm Addie, you know, it's like, so we all have our little, you know, my brothers are Scotty Baby and Davy Bean and Diddy. But their names are Scott, David, and Joe, and Seth, you know, but Seth is Sethy. But, you know, it's like they all have their little nicknames, and I can't, it just is what it is. So, yes, of course, we step right back into, I'm the big sister. Everybody looks to me. If, you know, mama's getting out of control, it's like, take care of that, you know, or whatever. It's just
But so
funny.
what are you going to do differently now in the sense of, like, this year? Do you want to keep that role?
I guess we'll find out.
Well, but I'm asking you, do you want to keep that role? Like going into it?
Well,
Because
I
what I
don't
was
mind
talking about
being
before is
big
the
sister
big
and
sister,
speaking up and all
but
of that. What I'm talking about is like, it's more comes from like the parents and things that they say. You're right. It gets into politics. It gets into, I'm the black sheep of the family in the sense that I'm gay. I'm the one that moved away. I live my life differently. I'm not here with kids and doing all the things and contributing all. So, it's on me in one sense though, right? This is what we're talking about. It's like when these things come up, it's like, I have to let that stuff not bother me.
but
But
it's
it's
easier to say,
challenging.
right? But that's why I recommend going in with a game plan so that when you're at your wit's end or you're emotional or you want to be impulsive, think back to the structure of the plan you had in your head and go, am I going with this structure? You have to make a concerted effort to be aware of your actions in the beginning when you're learning, right? So I'm not
Yes.
sorry, I'm not
No, no.
saying don't go around your family. I'm just saying in general, and listen, there are people out there that aren't triggered at all, and that's amazing. This conversation isn't for you, but I'm saying to people in general, in years of my therapy and coaching and doing, unless there's a game plan of what you're going to stick to, of like, listen, it could be one thing. Don't get baited. Don't let people bait
Don't
you
get
into
baited.
conversation.
That's what I need to keep in my head. Take a deep
There we
breath.
go. Everyone has a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so someone may say like, ooh, things haven't changed. You're still drinking. Or my brothers used to make a comment of, are you sure you want another piece of that cake? Like, don't you think you should put the fork down? And that used to throw me into a reel of like defending myself, going, who do you think you are? And then everyone getting crazy. And, or the comment one Thanksgiving was, get up and do the dishes so my wife doesn't have to. You can only imagine how that ended with a drunk 28-year-old.
Right.
Right. And so in front of the kids, and then I would get my sister to come on my side, and then it would be us against them, and then it would all be denied, and I'm too sensitive and I'm overreacting, and oh my God. And then they minimize it, but they never take the what's that called when my brain, they never take responsibility for what they said. And so there's never an apology. It's Dena's too sensitive, and oh, we can't act like that anymore, and I didn't say anything. And
I get called too sensitive. You're too sensitive.
I'm sorry, it's called I'm a human and words can hurt, right? And so it's just comments like that that made me never want to go back, right? And so I think when things like that happen, it just puts a bad taste in your mouth for each time. And then each time, listen, I don't see any people in my family going to therapy consistently and doing the work. So I'm under the assumption that nothing's changed.
Right. Yeah.
So I go back to the States every year, but I choose not to go during the holidays. That will just be way too overwhelming for me.
That makes
I could be with your family. I could be with someone else's family, but unfortunately it's hard to be with my own.
Yeah. I gotcha. Well, then you're doing the right thing. You're hanging out with somebody else's family in Italy.
And well, think about this. In Italy, I don't have to worry about food very much on Christmas and Christmas Eve, because Christmas Eve is 7 fishes. I'm allergic to fish. So there goes that. And then I sit around with everyone eating, but I can't eat, which that covers the food issues, right? And then I bring my own food, vegan, gluten-free. And then the next day it's all pasta and lasagna, which I can't eat theirs because it's gluten.
Yeah.
So I'm covered, and now they know not to push it on me. Before they used to push, but it took a few years, like a good 5, and now they understand it and it's respectful. But I think too that that's probably why I ditched it altogether, because it was easy to escape all of those issues. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying that that's how I've handled it in the past. What I'm hoping for is in the future, like I'm doing now, is I'm creating an environment that I wished I would have had growing up. And so I get to decide who comes into my life during the holidays. And I get to decide what the mood is going to be, right? And so I love feeding people but I love giving them all the food to take when they leave.
Well, I think that's a very important thing you just brought up is like who you allow into your holiday circle. Some people don't get that luxury. Some people are just like, shit, you're stuck with who you're stuck with, and you have to just sort of grin and bear it and get through it, right?
Uh-huh.
But it is an important distinction to make, that if you have the choice of, like, if you've started dating someone, or if there are friends around that can be a little overbearing or challenging or whatever, because the holidays are such a time of, they come up every year. You're going to remember
Of
where you
course.
were last Christmas,
Yes.
what you were doing. If you don't want to feel all that awkwardness, all that, whatever, the resentment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Choose wisely. That's all I'm
Yes.
saying. Choose
Yes.
wisely, because I've made that mistake before too, of bringing people around just because maybe somebody's by themselves and you feel bad for them, but really they have some things to
They might
work
be by
out that.
themselves for a reason, right? And
Well,
so
it's
it
not yours
might,
to take on, is what I'm saying. Like, there's ways
yeah,
to give to people during this season and help people without feeling like, you bring them into such a way that it affects you and the people around you too.
for sure. And I used to
Giving gets tricky.
overcompensate. Yes, and I used to overcompensate so much, and enough was never enough.
Right.
And so it's like, when is enough? And I'm learning, whether it's food, shopping, exercising, I'm learning now, because I've been also going through a weight loss journey and everything, when enough is enough. Like for me, it was always like dopamine, dopamine, give me more dopamine, right? And so now what I'm learning is, like, there's a bunch of kids that come here and we play ping pong and games, and I was like, my mind was already like, I gotta buy all the kids a gift. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna get something for all the kids that we can play at my house and use. That
Mm-hmm.
way I benefit too. And then I'm keeping it. And mostly I just give away things I make, like cookies and things like that. But I also am, for the building, there's nothing attached to that. That's just me. I do the pharmacy, anything. But what I recommend for people just in general is figure out where you were with those people last year and see if that's still the way you feel this year, before you go investing again, because it's just what you've always done. Meaning, if someone's not in your life and they're not around all the time and they don't appreciate you, why the fuck are you making them a basket? Right. And so because that just confirms that they're not doing anything wrong. I'm not saying to judge, but I think it's really important for us to start going, okay, this year, I want to be more present. This year, I want to have more, meaningful conversations. This year, instead of saying what you don't want, start saying what you do want.
Mm-hmm.
And then when what you don't want comes up, go, oh, we're shifting that this year.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not doing that this year. And so I think that, some people have traditions and all of that, but like for me, the hope is when I find a new partner, I'll be able to build and have the Christmases and holidays I've always wanted. But until then, I'm giving them to myself.
There you go. But that, what you just said too, goes back to what we talked about as far as the guilt, like the holiday guilt and the feeling that, oh, well, I've got to keep my side of the street clean, meaning that I always want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure I show up and I give, and I don't want anybody to say that I didn't do whatever. I mean,
But are you giving to the people who because you don't want anyone to say anything to, but are they people that you want to give what you're giving to?
well, either way, I mean, the expectation is what drives me crazy in all of
Uh-huh.
it, right? All of it.
Well, then
It's
that's where
like,
you got to let
why
go.
have we gotten to this point in our culture? Exactly.
You're exactly right. In our culture, just in culture in general, it's so funny around here in Europe and where I'm living is people generally go, oh, Americans do this, Americans do that, Americans do. And so when I would talk to my nephews from here, whatever, and I was guilty of this. And for Christmas, when they were younger, I go, what'd you get for Christmas? They're like $20. And I was like, what? That's all you got for Chris? And I literally would say that like a jerk, right? And then I would make their mom look bad and everyone look bad. And Mark was like, before you entered this family, no one ever gave gifts like they give now. And I guess I pushed this on them, right? And so it's not big expensive gifts, but I was trying to teach them it's nice to be thought of. And so now what I do is I just bring prize gifts. And then last year I brought Christmas bingo, and then we all played
That's
Christmas
fun.
bingo, and then
Yeah.
everyone won prizes, and then
Yeah,
that's how
Christmas
I give
games are
gifts now to
fun.
his family.
We did that
Yeah.
last year too. That's a good reminder. Christmas games to play with the whole family are really fun, and you just reminded me. Yeah, I want to come up
Yes,
with
and
some
you
other ones
ask,
for this year.
and
It is fun.
Thanksgiving too, you ask everyone to bring a $5 gift. They can bring cash or whatever, but have it wrapped. And then you just put them in a basket, and then everyone can just take a gift when they win. And they also have Thanksgiving on Etsy, little bingo cards, super cute, and Christmas ones. So you make it fun, right? And so that's what I do now, but I'm learning to implement new things because, right, if you don't do something different, you're not going to get anything different, right? So a lot of that, I can't control them. I can control me, how I respond to the situation, how I show up to the situation, right? And so I think sometimes we can show up already with our defensive mode on because we know what we're in for, right? And so I've been guilty of that. Like I would be
That
prepared,
is
then
true.
yes,
You're
and then I would
waiting.
walk
You're
in the
waiting.
door. Yes.
Wonder Woman.
And then I'm defensive, and everyone's like, what's your problem? I'm like, oh, I'm just getting ready.
Yep.
I'm getting
Yeah.
my, and that's tough, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, what do you do if Thanksgiving or Christmas or something is where a loved one was lost, and it's usually a really down time for everyone? Are you now for the rest of your life supposed to stay
Well, that's
really
what I was,
down?
yeah, gonna say. Like in these times where how do you start to do it differently? Like you were mentioning some of the ways now that you're doing differently and building for yourself.
Uh-huh. And I think conversations and respect of like, hey, I know it's been a while. Can I know where you're at emotionally? Because I don't want to make you feel bad or push you to something maybe you're not ready for.
Or maybe
If it's a
plan a
parent or a sibling.
right, sorry, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
plan like, hey, let's do a little something to honor mom or dad or whoever passed, Let's set aside a
Mm-hmm.
time that we're gonna honor so we don't feel like we're just going through the motions and feeling guilty or whatever it is, that loss,
Yes.
you know?
Well, and I also know because here, since my ex's dad died, no one ever talks about it.
That's
Ever.
just weird.
Like and I wanted to get like pictures and like a friend. No, do not give that. She will be very upset. So there are people who don't want to talk about it
Mm-hmm.
and but also want to stay in that place. But does that mean you have to sacrifice your Christmas or your holiday because the person in your family is still having a difficult time through things?
Right.
And so I
That's where
think
you got
that
to
that's a
create some of
question
your
we
own tradition,
because
right?
some of that is guilt and some
Mm-hmm.
of that is like, oh, I have to, I don't want them to feel bad. I don't, and I get it, it's
Totally.
respect or whatever, but if it's been a certain amount of time, or maybe like, I'm somebody who doesn't carry emotions like that for long periods of time. And
I don't
so
either.
for me, I don't understand the yearly anniversaries and things and all of that. And that's something I'm being more respectful of,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean that let's just say if you don't like somebody that is going to an event or a sister-in-law, brother-in-law, whatever it may be, or you're not talking to someone, maybe show up at a different time and don't say, well, I'm not going because so-and-so is going to be there. Hey, mom, we have a dinner before, but is it okay if we come for dessert? And then hopefully if that person is still, that family member is still there, it's a shorter amount of
Yeah.
time. And you know what I mean? You've got to have a game plan.
Right.
And so you can't always avoid it. At some point, you are going to have to deal with it. It's inevitable.
Right.
So whether you're not talking to someone or whatever, and then you're missing out on things because of the fights with whoever. And I just think or let's just say hypothetically, you have a spouse,
I was
you
just gonna
don't get along
say,
with his, yeah,
can we
I'm
talk
not
about
specific,
partners?
right? And so you must have a spouse, and let's say I don't want them to not see their family, so I would say spend Christmas morning with me. By all means, you go have lunch at your family's and I'll have lunch with my family.
What if
And
they're like,
don't
but
make
babe, I want you to come with me. We're married or we're together. We're supposed to do these things together.
and
Try to
your
make you feel
brother or sister is a
guilty.
dick to me and you don't stick up for me. Therefore, I don't want to put myself in that
Uh-huh.
situation, nor
You
do I
have to
want to put
speak
you
up.
in. You have to
Yeah.
have communication,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
so I think it's important to keep your boundaries there and not break your boundaries to make somebody else comfortable.
Agreed.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I think that that spouse thing, especially with in-laws and things, and people go, well, it's not that easy. You have to go because the kids, because whatever. Drop the kids off.
Because you
sit in your car for an hour down the street. You know what I mean? If you want to keep the peace like you say you do, and you want to get through this, then you have to be willing to do your part. So it's like, well, I hate them. I didn't want my kids around them. But do your kids want to be around them? Do you feel safe with your kids around? If you don't like them, that's a you problem. But you can't keep your kids, whether it's a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, and I'm talking if they're not abusive and, you know, horrible to your children and to you, and you're really trying to say, because I think when siblings fight, the hard thing is then those nieces or nephews lose out on an aunt or, you know, someone else, because when siblings fight, then they're going to keep their kid away from you. They don't want you to have anything to do with their kid. And that sucks for the kid and for me.
Yeah.
That's happened to me. I have a niece that one of my siblings and I were fighting. It's been 10 years, completely kept me from that child. And I no longer, so did I try for a good 8 years and beg? Yeah. And then I got tired. And then I realized at the end of the day, it's not going to make a difference. That person is steadfast on keeping that, you know, the way it is.
And let's hope one day it comes around differently when the child is old enough to recognize what happened.
And if it does, I may not be in the same space. Right. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
So these holidays, I think, especially this year, I just have some really great subtle changes and profound impact. When you're buying a huge amount of things, ask yourself why. Who are you overcompensating for? Ask yourself, did you train your kids to expect so many things? Are you doing it because you want, and then you think that you have to? I bet your kids would love just spending time with you, maybe making DIY projects or cookies or whatever it may be, because if we've learned anything through COVID, it's not about monetary things. It really is about quality time. Easier said than done. I get it. But in my experience, I find that people love just a tiny gesture to know that they were thought about. And so before we go getting into debt, buying a bunch of things because we're afraid what other people are going to think of what we have, what we don't have, what we gave, or if someone, how about this one? Matching the gift. Like if someone bought me something expensive, now I feel like I have to match.
That's what I was talking about with the guilt. I'm like, where did we get to this point of like, now I'm expected to buy you because you know, did something for me.
Commercialism, capitalism, all of it, right? So I just don't want to do it.
Not that I don't want y'all to give me nice things.
Right.
I'm not saying
ring
no
size
to the
8.
Yeah.
Right.
7.5.
Love me Cartier. There we go. Santa. You know where I live.
Yeah.
So
but
funny. I think it is important having these conversations going in, or I also recommend maybe having a sidebar conversation with somebody who generally gangs up with the person that gangs up on you and go, hey, you know, I know that usually could we not this year, and I'm willing to squash it or do preventative measures.
Point. Yeah. Right.
So we can't just go in hoping it's been a year and everyone's going to be different without doing any work.
You're right. Don't let them bait. Don't let them bait. Don't let them bait. Don't let them bait. Don't get baited. Don't let them bait. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't be baited.
Do not
Don't
get
allow
baited.
them to pull me out of character. That's going to be my goal.
Yes. Do not let someone take you outside of your character, because you're the one who's responsible for that. And then at the end of the day, you get blamed.
Yep, I do.
You said this. You said, well, you didn't have to respond to what I said to you if you were mad. Well, I kind of did, jerk off.
Why are you so sensitive? Why don't you just ignore me? I got that.
Or there we go again, the crocodile tears. Yes. Ignore my fist in your face. And you know, it's like,
these are just examples, but it's like, I know that people have a lot around the holidays.
A lot. And I think that we all don't realize too, is that emotionally we're just triggered anyway because it's the holidays, and then you go into an emotionally volatile situation that it's all triggering, and then you go bing bong bing bong bing bong bing bong, and you're all over the place, and then add some liquor into that, and then you're literally all over the place, then you're over emotional,
right,
and then you respond in ways that you regret the next day.
Exactly, because I was going to say it's easy to just say, well, let's all be kind, but we know the holidays are stressful, traffic sucks. Everybody is trying to cook their meal in time and fight for oven space and whatever.
Yes.
It's just stupid, stressful time.
That
is so lovely when everyone comes together, but there's a lot of just things that go in, and you don't even recognize that someone is worried about making things perfect for the people they love. And that's what it really comes down to. You're stressing yourself out because you're trying to make it perfect, right? Or you're trying to make it so lovely.
And then I want you to think about this one before we wrap it up, about all the single childless people or married childless people or whatever. But when you're single and you don't have a child, I was always the one expected to service everyone and their children. Come to our house. The kids really want to see you. Come here, the kids. So I would then get pushed between siblings and their kids of like, oh, well, you like, so my parents said that you prefer so-and-so better because you were at their house and you didn't want to come be with us. So it's like, first of all, it's my Christmas too. Second of all, it's like, I now have to go entertain your kids on your holiday. But what?
I've always been the one that travels. I'm always the one that drives to everything, everywhere. But you're right. It's been that way for years. I've allowed it to be that way for years. And I don't currently have a spot to bring them all to me. So therefore,
but why would they all come to you? There's 5 of us and 1 of you. It just makes more sense for you to come to us. Hence, then I'm driving in the car for an hour and a half.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, there's always a way. That's why I say the subtle change, the profound impact would be, have your game plan before going in and stick to it for yourself. If you ever want the cycle of whatever it is you're trying to change end, it's the healthiest way you could do it for yourself.
Amen,
your
sister.
Game plan.
Amen, Christmas Grinch. Sister.
There we go. Yes, I'm the Grinch. I'm the happiest Grinch you've ever known.
Or a little Christmas tree. I don't know.
Yes,
you're all holiday
that's me.
Today. I know, I'm not festive. I didn't put on anything holidayish, but it's not even Christmas yet.
That's okay. We're getting ready for the season. I'm warming everyone up.
I know.
Warming everyone up with my fashion.
Yes. Well, thank you for this conversation. Fun. Yes, as always, I enjoyed it. And happy holidays, everybody. And
happy holidays.
We wish you peace and joy and kindness.
Peace and love. And I wish you not to be triggered.
Yes.
So it's a trigger-free holiday.
Yes, leave us some comments below. Let us know how it's going. Keep us in the loop. Yes. You can email us anytime if you want to be a guest on the show, and that is littnnguest@gmail.com.
Yes, and then I just got to say, gabba gabba, gabba gabba.
Bye, turkeys.
Bye, turkeys.